Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 570. Let's see, let's turn this around. I had the black pieces. My opponent kicked off with d4. I played d5, and he goes with bishop f4, the London system, or in one way of introducing the London system. I go with knight f6. I'm playing this kind of simple setup against the London system. I'm going to play with e3, e6 rather, bishop to d6, and then I'm going to try and later fianchetto my light squared bishop and try and get some pressure along this diagonal to counteract the idea that white has of often pushing e4. But my play gets interrupted before we get that far. I go e3, he goes e3, I go e6, and then he goes c4. So that's an unusual move for the London system player. Usually they go with knight f3 and then c3, setting up a very solid pawn triangle and then looking for a kingside attack later. So c4, interesting and dynamic way to play, and not too bad. I defend with c6, and he goes knight c3. Now I go bishop d6. We're just out of the opening book, and I'm just challenging his bishop along this diagonal. He goes queen a4 here, and at this point the chess engine wants me to take the bishop off. I was thinking about this during the game, but I didn't like it. After I take the bishop, he comes back with a pawn. He has a lot of pressure in the center here, control over the e5 square. But that doesn't necessarily fit well with this queen over here on a4, so probably the chess engine is right. That would be a good way for me to play. Anyway, I ignore that possibility and just castle, or I decline it. He develops. We get some developing moves, and I play knight h5 and go after the bishop. Now if I can win the bishop, I can take the bishop and win the pawn. So he drops back, and I take the bishop off anyway, but I get the bishop pair, and white gets an open h-file. So we have this simple attacking idea. So white's position is pretty easy to play, one of the advantages, and the attack is dangerous, but black should be able to defend this. So I start with knight d7. I need to get a piece over here to the king side. He goes bishop d3, knight f6. So he's got two pieces attacking, I have two pieces defending, but he brings in a third piece with the queen. That's what I mean about it being easy to play. He just lines up all his pieces on this square, and he's going to castle queenside and bring another rook on this file. So pretty straightforward. So I go h6. I didn't have a way to defend that pawn anymore. I could have gone with g6 too. That's an option, but it does create some potential dark squared weaknesses, I guess. And he went knight a5. So this is one interesting moment in the game. And I play things in the wrong order. I miss kind of a tactical idea here. I play pawn takes pawn, and after bishop takes, then I take the knight. But it's stronger to take the knight first. And the reason is that after I take the knight, I can play this move knight to g4, and it attacks the c5 pawn, and he can't play the defensive move f4, defending the pawn, because I'm also attacking the e3 pawn. So this would be good for white. Good for black. It's a nice attacking move. The way I played it, I took this pawn first, and then I took the knight. And now knight g4 doesn't work. Now I wasn't even thinking about knight g4. I was thinking about clearing the square for my bishop, for my knight, putting a knight on d5. But if I were to try knight g4 here, there's an answer, which is queen e4, protects the pawn and hits the knight, and it's now awkward because this knight has nowhere to go to. It's trapped up here, so it gets tricky. I have to defend with a queen, I think. Anyway, so that gives the advantage to white. So I didn't play like that, but it just shows the difference between those two move orders. When I do this exchange first, it gets the bishop out of the way and opens up this queen e4 move possibility. Anyway, I took this way, I took the knight, he took, and now I placed my knight to d5, which was what I'd planned. So he castles queenside, and he's got pressure against the knight. He's threatening to play e4, winning a piece, so I get the queen out of the way, and bring the queen over to the king side here. It's a little bit risky because it may get chased around by these pawns, but it also is a good defensive piece here, defending against this attack. He goes king b1, getting out of the way. He's neglecting at this point to defend his e-pawn, and I'm neglecting to take it. So this pawn hangs for a couple of moves, and I really should have taken it. Anyway, b5, kicking the bishop, it drops back, and I take on c3. Once again, I could have grabbed this pawn, but after this, now the pawn is defended, and I'm actually a little bit worse because I have this problem with my c-pawn blocking in my light-squared bishop. So I can't move the c-pawn forward, it drops the b-pawn. So I just have to be patient for a little bit and try and find a way to mobilize this bishop. So I start with bishop b7. And right now, queen to c5 would be a good move. He can just place his queen on this dark square, and I can't easily or quickly chase it away. I guess I have a plan maybe of bringing a rook around like this to try and chase it away, but he can stop that with the pawn or with the bishop perhaps. So not so easy. And a queen sitting on c5 would really put a clamp on these pawns and keep my bishop out of play. So that would be good for white. Instead he played f4. I drop my queen back to e7, and now I've got an eye on this c5 square, so I'm going to get in this push. He goes rook h2. His plan is just to double on the h-file, very straightforward. And I go with f5 here. This is another interesting moment. It blocks this diagonal, but white had a possibility here of taking en passant. He could take like this, and when I take back, he can trade queens. Now, he wasn't thinking of this, and I wasn't thinking of this, because, well, he's playing this for the attack, and he wants the queen on for the attack. He doesn't want to go into an endgame. But this is just a good endgame for white. My bishop is still blocked in behind the pawns. His bishop has got pressure on b5, so I can't quickly get in this c5 move. And the bishop could drop back, and his rook could come into the 7th rank very quickly. So even though the material is even, this would be a probably winning endgame for white if he plays it well. So that's really what white should have done, and what I should have been. I should have been a little more cautious about playing this f5 move here. But I'm already under some pressure. Anyway, he ignores all that and doubles on the h-file. And I push on with c5. Neglecting, by the way, neglecting my b5 pawn. So this is the second point in the game where there's this pawn hanging for several moves. He sees that I'm coming with c4 here, and he drops the bishop back in advance. Also, this bishop's diagonal is not any good, so he's dropping it back to a diagonal where it'd be more effective in the attack, hopefully, for him. So I throw in this bishop check, get my bishop out of prison, king a1, and rook a to d8. So I've activated all my pieces, and I'm feeling pretty good. And I am in a good position, except that I have just dropped this pawn once again, which he still neglects. He pushes on with g4. So we have this sort of gentleman's agreement between us not to go after the loose pawns. Anyway, a typical attacking move. You push those pawns forward to open things up. And I want to get counterplay on the d file. So I play rook d7, pushes on with g5. I double rooks. And now he takes. And this move, although it's a very natural move, is actually a mistake. And it's only a mistake because of the move that I have in reply. So other moves are fine. White can continue the attack in a number of ways. He can try to maneuver with his queen. He could just give a little lift for his king. That would probably help a lot. But rushing ahead right here is a mistake. And it's strictly because of this move, rook d2, which is actually stronger than I realized during the game. But the threat here is there's a mate threat on the back rank, and this bishop has to guard that square and the rook because he needs two pieces to guard it. So the bishop needs to stay on this diagonal, and there's a threat that I'll just take it if it stays where it is. And if it comes back to these squares, I'll trade it off. And if it drops all the way back to h5, I can play g6, kicking it off the diagonal. He can grab the pawn here, but then he gets mated. So this actually wins a piece, at least for black. So this is just a winning position for black. And what white plays, he leaves everything in place and just takes here. And that turns out to be the best move, looking at it with the chess engine. So he's actually played this correctly. And now it comes down to my choice. I have basically a choice between two moves. I can take the bishop, or I can take here and defend the king against this h-file attack. And so this is a very interesting and complicated position. And so if you want to take some time, why don't you consider those two moves and see which one of those two moves you would play, and how play might continue along each of those lines. Okay, yeah, take time to pause the video if you want to think about it for a while. I'm going to give the answer away. So the chess engine tells us that rook takes e2 is the best move here and is winning for black because, well, first of all, I'm just up material, but secondly, because this attack does not go anywhere. He can go in with the first rook, and of course it's important not to take the pawn, because then the rook can drop back, check the king, and pick up the queen. So the king has to run over here to f7. But there's no big follow-up is the problem for white. Pushing the pawn forward doesn't work because it's adequately guarded. He can't bring this rook forward because he gets mated on the back rank. This rook is threatening mate as soon as this rook leaves the back rank. So the threats that black has balance the threats that white has, and black is a piece up. So so in this odd and unresolved position, I mean, I would, even being able to look ahead this far, I would still be pretty scared to play this way because the king over here surrounded by a pawn that's about to queen and an enemy rook. It looks very dangerous. But this is winning for black. And the move that I played, which I thought was the safer move, this actually loses. Although it doesn't lose the way my opponent played. He just continued on with this attack, which is what I was expecting, and I just trade the queen off for the two rooks, and I come out material up. The bishop hangs at the end. So this is a place where the attacking player really needs to stop and do some soul searching. You know, if you notice that your planned straightforward attack just doesn't work, or is not leading anywhere. Oops, let's erase that arrow. Okay, let's try and erase those arrows. Then you're obliged to search elsewhere. So this is a point where you might want to pause the video and see if you can find the best way for white to continue the attack. Okay, I'll admit this is another, I'm going to give the answer away now. I'll admit this is another very difficult move to find, but the best move in this position and the winning move for white is queen to a5. It's kind of a sneaky move because the queen is looking at this pawn, at the rook, looking at the rook on d8, so that I can't take his bishop. So this queen a5 move defends his bishop, so I can't take his bishop, and I can't mate him because he's got that adequately covered. So he's kind of met all of my threats, and in the meantime he still has ideas of bringing his rook in here, checking my king and hitting my queen. So this is a very difficult position for white. I think, yeah, actually I take that back about the rooks. I mean, the rooks are controlling the h-file, but they still can't, he still can't actually bring a rook down here because I have these squares guarded by king and queen, and I will do the trade as I did at the game. But this queen can maneuver around over here. And in fact, I think that the follow-up move is queen to a6, looking at this pawn and giving up the bishop. Which when he gives up the bishop, momentarily there's no mate threat because my rooks are not lined up on the same file. Anyway, it's complicated, and I don't remember the whole line, so you'll have to take my word for it. But there's a winning attack starting with that sneaky queen a5 move. Instead, he played this rook h8, very straightforward, but you know, it's just a little too simple for the situation. The situation was more complicated than that. There was a win there, but he really needed to look for it. And now he plays a3 because I have a mate threat. So all the other moves are with check, so I didn't have time to mate him, but now I am threatening to mate him. So he plays a3, and that's what gives me time to grab his bishop. And now I'm just up material. But it's worse than that because his king is really in trouble here. It has a limited number of squares, and my pieces are all actively posted. He grabbed a pawn here, but the rook comes in with check. King goes to a2, bishop d5 with check, and there's no moves. If the queen drops back here to block, then I'll take it, and that's mate. And the only other way to block the check is to take the bishop, which he did. I take back, and he played on a move but resigned at this point because that's pretty hopeless. Anyway, pretty interesting game, I thought. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon.